The cold metal floor of 7 pressed against Ho's back as he tried to sleep. His thin jacket did little against the chill that crept through the maintenance tunnels. Above him, thousands of aliens walked, talked, and traded in the bright commercial districts. Down here in the lower decks, only the desperate and the dangerous lived. Ho had been one of the lucky ones once. He worked on a cargo ship, had a small cabin, and earned enough to send money back to his sister on Earth. Then pirates attacked. They destroyed his ship and killed most of the crew. Ho survived only because he was in the cargo hold when the explosion started. He escaped in a pod and drifted for 3 days before a rescue ship found him. But rescue meant only survival, not salvation. The station authorities gave him basic medical care and 48 hours in a temporary shelter. After that, he was on his own. No money, no identification papers that survived the attack, and no way to prove who he was or what he owned. The station's bureaucracy moved slowly. Getting replacement documents took months. Finding work without documents was impossible. So Ho learned to survive in the forgotten spaces. He slept in abandoned service alcoves. He ate discarded food from restaurant waste containers. He avoided the security patrols and the criminals who preyed on people like him. Most importantly, he avoided the lower tunnels where the hunted. Everyone on the station knew about the. They were massive predators, standing 3 meters tall with 6 powerful limbs and armored exoskeletons that could deflect most small weapons. Their home world was a death trap of competing apex predators, and evolution had made them perfect hunters. Glowing markings on their bodies let them communicate silently in the dark. Their multiple eyes could see in spectrums humans couldn't imagine, and they were fast, terrifyingly fast when they wanted to be. A pack had claimed the deepest maintenance levels years ago. Station security tried to remove them once. 15 officers went down. Only 3 came back up. After that, the authorities quietly declared the deep tunnels off-limits and pretended the problem didn't exist. They stayed below and everyone else stayed above. It was an unspoken agreement. Tonight, Ho was hungry. He hadn't eaten in 2 days, and the usual spots had yielded nothing. Desperation drove him closer to the dangerous areas than he normally went. Behind a restaurant, he found a large waste container that hadn't been emptied yet. He climbed onto a broken crate and started searching through the discarded food. That's when he heard it, a small, pitiful sound, almost like crying but not quite. Ho froze and listened. There it was again, coming from behind a pile of collapsed ceiling panels nearby. He should have walked away, he knew that. Nothing good lived in places like this. But the sound was so desperate, so afraid. Ho found himself moving toward it before he could think better. The ceiling panels had fallen in a way that created a small cave. Inside, trapped and unable to move, was something that made Ho's heart stop. A cub, no bigger than a large dog. One of its legs was pinned under a heavy metal beam. The creature's bioluminescent markings pulsed rapidly in patterns Ho didn't understand, but the meaning was clear enough. It was terrified. The cub saw him and made a sound between a hiss and a whimper. It tried to pull away but couldn't move. Its leg was definitely broken. Blood, darker than human blood, pooled beneath the beam. Every survival instinct Ho possessed screamed at him to run. If the cub was here, the pack was somewhere nearby. Adult would tear him apart for getting close to their young. But looking at the small creature, trapped and in pain, Ho saw himself. Lost, hurt, and forgotten in the dark places of the station. He knelt slowly, keeping his movements gentle and predictable. "Hey there," he said softly. "I'm not going to hurt you." The cub didn't understand his words, but something in his tone made it stop struggling. It watched him with intelligent, multifaceted eyes that reflected the dim emergency lighting. Ho examined the situation. The beam was heavy, but if he could lift it just a little, the cub might be able to pull its leg free. He positioned himself, gripped the cold metal, and pushed upward with all his strength. His muscles screamed. The beam shifted just slightly. "Come on, little one," he grunted. "Pull yourself out." The cub understood. It yanked its injured leg free just as Ho's strength gave out and the beam crashed back down. Both of them breathed heavily, staring at each other. The cub tried to stand but collapsed immediately. Its leg couldn't support weight. Without thinking, Ho reached into his pocket and pulled out the protein bar he'd been saving for tomorrow. It was all the food he had. He broke off a piece and held it out. The cub sniffed cautiously, then snatched the food and devoured it. Ho offered another piece, and another, until the bar was gone. The small creature's markings changed from rapid pulses to a slower, dimmer rhythm. "That's all I have," Ho said, "but let me look at that leg." He tore strips from his already ragged jacket and found a piece of straight metal in the rubble. Working slowly, talking constantly in soothing tones, he made a simple splint. The cub growled when he touched the injury but didn't try to bite. It seemed to understand he was helping. When he finished, Ho sat back. The cub looked at him with those strange, intelligent eyes. Its markings had settled into a steady, soft glow. In his research about station life, Ho had read that bioluminescence indicated emotional states. This pattern, if he remembered correctly, meant the creature was no longer afraid. "Where's your family?" Ho asked, looking around nervously. "They've got to be looking for you." As if in answer, a deep sound echoed through the tunnels. Not quite a roar, more like a vibration that Ho felt in his bones. The cub's head lifted, and it made a responding sound, higher and weaker. "Right," Ho said, standing quickly. "Time for you to go home." He picked up the cub as carefully as he could. It was heavier than it looked, and its armored body was hard under his hands. The creature didn't struggle. Ho carried it through the rubble toward the entrance to the deeper tunnels. With every step, the vibrating call grew louder. His hands shook. At the edge of the deep tunnels where the emergency lights failed and true darkness began, Ho set the cub down gently. "Go on," he said. "Follow the sound. They're looking for you." The cub looked at him for a long moment. Then it turned and limped into the darkness, moving surprisingly fast despite its injury. Within seconds, Ho could only see the glow of its markings disappearing into the depths. He didn't wait to see what came next. He ran back to his sleeping alcove, his heart pounding, and huddled in his usual spot. His stomach was empty. His jacket was torn. He'd given away his only food and possibly signed his own death warrant by touching a cub. But as he tried to sleep, he couldn't bring himself to regret it. The fear in that small creature's eyes had been too familiar. Sometimes, Ho thought, you had to help someone else even when you could barely help yourself. That's what made you human. He didn't know that his life had just changed forever. He didn't know that the debt he'd created in the pack's collective mind was deeper than any human custom could measure. He didn't know that tomorrow morning he would wake up to gifts he never asked for and protection he never imagined possible. All he knew was that somewhere in the dark tunnels, a small creature was back with its family, and that was enough. Ho woke to the smell of blood. His eyes snapped open, and morning light filtered through the broken ventilation grate above his alcove. He sat up quickly, looking around for danger. That's when he saw them. 3 large tunnel rats lay on the floor just outside his sleeping spot. They were freshly killed, still warm. Their necks were broken cleanly. Ho stared at them in confusion. He hadn't caught these. He hadn't even heard anything during the night. Yet here they were, arranged almost carefully just within his reach. Then he saw the marks. In the thin layer of dust on the floor, massive footprints surrounded his alcove. 6 stowed prints, each one the size of his hand. Tracks, multiple sets of them. They had been here while he slept, close enough to touch him, and he never knew. Ho's breath caught in his throat. His eyes adjusted to the shadows in the far corner of the maintenance corridor, and he saw them. Glowing marks in the darkness. Eyes reflecting the dim light. At least 5 or 6 of them, maybe more, watching him from the shadows. He scrambled backward, pressing against the wall. His mind raced with panic. They had found him. The pack had come for the human who touched their cub. They were going to kill him. But they didn't move, They just watched. Slowly, Ho's breathing calmed enough for him to think. If they wanted him dead, he would already be dead. They had been inches away from him all night. They could have killed him 100 times over. Instead, they brought him food. He looked at the tunnel rats again. They were good meat, valuable in the lower decks. People would trade useful things for rats this size. They had given him wealth by the standards of his world. "Thank you," Ho said quietly to the shadows. His voice shook slightly. "For the food, thank you." The glowing marks pulsed once, a synchronized flash. Then they melted back into the deeper darkness and were gone, but Ho could still feel their presence. They hadn't left. They had just given him space. He waited a long time before moving. When he finally stood and picked up the rats, nothing attacked him. He made his way to a small camp where other homeless humans gathered during the day. They had a fire going in an old barrel, and the heat felt good after the cold night. An older woman named Sunmi looked up as he approached. Her eyes widened when she saw what he carried. "Where did you get those?" "Found them," Ho said. It wasn't exactly a lie. "Found them, those are fresh kills." She studied him suspiciously. "You've been hunting in the deep tunnels." "No, I'm not that stupid." Sunmi took the rats and examined them. Clean kills, professional, these weren't caught in traps. She looked at Ho with new wariness. "Someone's helping you. Who?" Ho didn't answer. He took his share of the cooked meat when it was ready and ate in silence. The other homeless people whispered among themselves, shooting him strange looks. Word traveled fast in the lower decks. For the next 3 days, the pattern repeated. Ho would wake to fresh kills outside his alcove. Tunnel rats, sometimes small cave lizards, once even a whole nest of protein-rich insect eggs. They were feeding him. More than that, they were protecting him. On the 4th day, Ho encountered 3 scavengers who sometimes robbed the weaker homeless people. He'd avoided them before by being quick and staying in groups. Today, he was alone, and they cornered him in a narrow service tunnel. "What you got today?" the leader, unnamed, asked. His companions spread out to block any escape. Ho raised his hands. "Nothing. I don't have anything worth taking." "Heard different. Heard you been eating good lately. Got fresh meat every day." Stepped closer. "So where you hiding it?" "I don't have any meat. I eat it when I get it." His hand moved to the knife at his belt. "Maybe I just take whatever you got anyway. Your jacket looks warm." Before Ho could respond, a sound filled the tunnel. It was the same deep vibration he'd heard the night he saved the cub, but closer and much louder. The walls seemed to shake with it. His face went pale. His companions backed away. From the darkness behind Ho, shapes emerged. 3 adult, each one massive and terrifying, moved into the dim light. Their bioluminescent markings blazed red, a warning color even someone as stupid as couldn't ignore. The scavengers ran. They didn't look back, didn't try to act tough, just ran as fast as they could toward the upper levels. Ho stood very still. They surrounded him but kept a respectful distance. One of them, the largest, moved closer. She was enormous, her exoskeleton bearing scars from countless fights. Her markings shifted from red to a softer blue as she looked at Ho. Then she made a sound, gentler than before, almost questioning. "I'm okay," Ho said, though his voice shook. "Thank you again." The large studied him for a moment longer, then turned and disappeared into the shadows. The others followed, but Ho knew they hadn't gone far. They were staying close, watching over him. News spread quickly. The homeless human who lived with the man who walked protected. People started treating Ho differently, some with respect, others with fear, many with suspicion. But no one tried to rob him anymore. No one threatened him. This protection was absolute. A week after he saved the cub, Ho was sitting outside his alcove, trying to repair a broken water pipe he used for drinking when he heard light footsteps. He looked up to see the cub approaching. It was moving better now, barely limping. The splint was gone, replaced by what looked like natural healing. The creature was bigger than he remembered, growing fast. The cub walked right up to him without hesitation. It pressed its head against Ho's leg, the way a cat might. The contact was warm, and he could feel the hard plates of its armor under the smoother skin. Without thinking, Ho reached down and touched its head. The cub's markings pulsed with soft yellow light. Happy, Ho thought. It was happy to see him. From the shadows, the large appeared. The matriarch Ho was now certain. She watched the interaction carefully. Her markings remained calm blue. She was allowing this. Ho kept his movements slow and gentle. The cub pushed against his hand, wanting more contact. He obliged, running his fingers along the ridge where armor plates met softer hide. The creature made a sound like a purr, deep and rumbling. "You're healing well," Ho said softly. "Your leg is better." The matriarch moved closer. Ho's heart raced, but he forced himself to stay calm. She circled him once, her movements deliberate and powerful. She was bigger than any creature he'd ever been near, a perfect killing machine. But her markings never turned red. She completed her circle and settled down nearby, watching. It was acceptance. Ho understood that without words. She was the pack leader, and she was telling him that he was safe here. The cub belonged to her, and by saving it, he had created a bond that culture took seriously. Over the following days, Ho learned more about his unexpected guardians. They were most active at night but kept watch in shifts during the day. There were 12 of them in total, including 3 cubs. They communicated through their bioluminescent markings and sounds too deep for human ears to properly hear. They were intelligent, far more than most species on the station realized. The young cub visited him daily. Ho started calling it Spark because its markings flashed brighter than the others. The name felt silly, but the cub seemed to respond to it, or maybe it just responded to the affection in Ho's voice. Sunmi confronted him one evening at the communal fire. "Everyone's talking about you. They say they protect you. They say you can walk anywhere in the lower decks safely now." Ho stirred the fire with a stick. "I helped one of them. They remember kindness." "That's not how predators work." "Maybe we don't know how they work. Maybe we never tried to understand them." Sunmi was quiet for a long time. Finally, she said, "There are others like us, homeless, desperate. If what you have is real, if they really do protect you," she looked at him seriously, "could they protect others too?" Ho thought about it. He thought about Spark and the matriarch. He thought about sleeping safely for the first time in months and having enough to eat. Could that extend to others? "I don't know," he admitted, "but maybe, if people treated them with respect instead of fear." That night, as Ho lay in his alcove with Spark curled up nearby and the sounds of the pack moving in the darkness around him, he realized something important. He wasn't alone anymore. In the darkest, most forgotten part of the station, he had found family. Not the family he was born into or the crew he once worked with, but family nonetheless. They had adopted him, and somehow, impossibly, he had adopted them too. Commander Jin stared at the report on her desk with disbelief. For the 3rd time this week, merchants from the upper commercial districts were complaining about disturbances in the lower decks. But these weren't the usual complaints about theft or violence. These were about something much stranger. "A human living among the," she read aloud. Her second officer, a tall named Vex, nodded from across the desk. "Multiple witnesses confirm it. A human male, appears to be homeless, has been seen with members of the pack on several occasions. The pack appears to be protecting him." "That's impossible. They are territorial apex predators. They don't form bonds with other species." "The witnesses are reliable. Some even recorded video, though the quality is poor given the lighting conditions in the lower decks." Vex pulled up a grainy image on the display. It showed a human figure with what appeared to be a cub at his side, and shadows of larger in the background. Jin leaned forward. "Find this human. I want to talk to him. Don't send a team, just make contact and invite him to come up. If the really are protecting him, I don't want to do anything that might be seen as hostile." While station security started their careful inquiries, other forces were already moving. In a private club on the mid-level commercial ring, a named Bora heard the same rumors and came to very different conclusions. Bora controlled most of the illegal trade flowing through Seven's lower decks. Weapons, stolen goods, and substances banned on dozens of worlds all moved through his network. This presence in the deep tunnels had been useful to him. It kept security away and provided a convenient excuse for why his people operated in those areas. They were simply the only ones brave enough to navigate near the predators. But a human who could walk safely among the changed everything. If one person could do it, others might try. His carefully maintained territory could become contested space. Bora made a decision. The human had to go. Send a message that the lower decks belonged to those who could take them by force, not those who made friends with monsters. He called his top enforcer, a brutal named. There's a human in the lower maintenance tunnels. The homeless one everyone's talking about. Remove him. What about the... If they're really protecting one human, they're not the threat we thought they were. They've gone soft. Prove it. Took 3 other enforcers and headed down. They found Ho near one of the water reclamation stations, filling containers from a working tap. He was alone, or appeared to be. "You're coming with us," announced, his weapon drawn but not aimed. "Not yet." Ho turned slowly. He recognized the gang markings on their clothes. "I don't have any business with Bora." "You are the business. You're making people nervous, walking around where you shouldn't be walking." "I'm not hurting anyone. I just want to be left alone." Stepped closer. "That's not how it works. You either work for someone down here or you leave. Since you can't work for us with your little pet monsters around, you're leaving." The enforcers started to surround Ho. He backed against the wall, looking for exits. The maintenance corridor had only 2 ways out and both were blocked. Then the lights went out. Emergency lighting should have kicked in immediately, but someone or something had disabled it. In the sudden darkness, Ho heard movement. Fast, powerful movement all around him. The enforcers shouted in panic. Weapons fired blindly, the plasma bolts illuminating the corridor in brief flashes. In those flashes, Ho saw them. The pack, moving through the corridor like shadows given form. They didn't attack the enforcers, but they didn't have to. Their presence was enough. The matriarch positioned herself directly in front of Ho, her massive form a living shield. Her markings blazed red in warning. The enforcers ran. They dropped their weapons and fled toward the upper levels, their courage completely gone. When the emergency lights finally flickered back on, Ho was alone with the pack. His hands were shaking. The matriarch turned to look at him. Her markings shifted to concerned blue. She moved closer, and despite her size, her touch was gentle as she checked him for injuries. Finding none, she made a low sound that Ho had come to recognize as approval. "Thank you," he breathed, again. Spark emerged from behind its mother, moving to Ho's side. The young pressed against him, offering comfort. The attack changed everything. Bora was furious that his enforcers failed, but more importantly, he was now committed to a course of action. If he backed down, he would look weak. In the criminal underworld, weakness was death. He began putting together a much larger force. If a few enforcers weren't enough, he would send an army. Commander Jin learned about the incident within hours. Station security had sensors throughout the lower decks, even if they rarely responded to events there. She reviewed the footage from the disabled cameras that had been briefly restored during the fight. What she saw made her pause the video and play it again. They hadn't just defended one of their own. They had defended a human, deliberately, strategically, and without killing anyone. That suggested a level of restraint and intelligence that official reports had never credited them with. She made her way to the lower decks personally, taking only one officer with her and making sure both were clearly unarmed. She wanted to talk to the human, and she wanted them to see that she wasn't a threat. Finding Ho wasn't hard. Everyone knew where he stayed now. She approached his alcove slowly, speaking clearly. "My name is Commander Jin. I'm station security. I'd like to talk to you about what happened today. I'm not here to arrest you or move you. Just talk." Ho emerged cautiously. He looked tired and thin, but his eyes were sharp. "I didn't start any trouble. I know, I saw the footage. You were attacked. You have every right to defend yourself." She paused, noticing movement in the shadows behind him. "Are they here now?" "They're always close." Jin studied him carefully. "How did this happen? How did you gain their protection?" Ho told her about the cub, the splint, and the protein bar. He kept it simple, just the facts. Jin listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "Do you know what you've done? There are who would give anything to have the kind of contact you have with the... They've never bonded with another species before." "I didn't mean to make history. I just helped someone who needed help." "That may be, but you're in danger now. Bora won't stop. He sees you as a threat to his operations. He'll send more people better armed." "Then I'll deal with it." "You can't stay down here. Come to the upper levels. We can protect you, get you proper housing, help you get your documents processed." Ho looked back at the shadows where they waited. He thought about Spark, about the matriarch's gentle concern, about sleeping safely for the first time in months. "I'm safer here than I'd be anywhere else on this station. Up there, I'm just another homeless human that no one cares about. Down here, I have family." Jin wanted to argue, but something in his expression stopped her. She'd seen that look before, on soldiers who found their unit, on people who discovered where they truly belonged. "If you stay, things are going to get worse before they get better. Bora has resources. He can bring in off-world help." "I know. And you'll still stay." "They didn't abandon me. I won't abandon them." Jin nodded slowly. She understood loyalty, even when it didn't make logical sense. "I can't officially help you. The lower decks are outside normal security jurisdiction, but I can make sure response times are slow if something happens. I can make sure the right information doesn't reach the right people at the right time." "Why would you do that?" "Because what you have here matters. I don't fully understand it yet, but I know it matters. And because Bora has been operating in my station for too long without consequences." She stood to leave. "Be careful. Watch for new faces. Mercenaries don't wear gang colors." After she left, Ho sat in the darkness and waited. They moved closer, forming a protective circle around him. The matriarch settled nearby, her presence solid and reassuring. Spark curled up against his side. He knew the commander was right. Worse things were coming, but he also knew he couldn't leave. They had given him more than food and protection. They had given him purpose, belonging, and dignity. Things he'd lost when the pirates destroyed his ship. Things he thought he'd never have again. In the upper levels, Bora was making calls. He contacted a mercenary company that specialized in wildlife control. Expensive, but effective. They had sonic weapons designed specifically to incapacitate type predators. They could bring 40 soldiers within 3 days. The siege was coming. Everyone in the lower decks could feel it. The tension built like pressure before a storm. Homeless people started moving to other areas, not wanting to be caught in whatever was about to happen. The pack became more active, patrolling their territory with increased vigilance. Sunmi found Ho on the second day. "You need to leave. Everyone knows something bad is coming." "I know." "Then why stay? They're just animals. They'll be fine without you." Ho looked at her seriously. "They're not just animals. They're people, different people, but people. And they're my friends. I don't abandon my friends." Sunmi sighed. "You're going to get yourself killed over this." "Maybe, but at least I'll die standing with those who stood with me." She left shaking her head, but Ho thought he saw respect in her eyes. Or maybe just pity. It didn't matter. His choice was made. The mercenaries arrived on the third day. 40 soldiers, all heavily armed and wearing armor designed for hostile environment work. They set up a staging area on the boundary between the mid-level and lower decks. Their commander, a cold-eyed human woman named Kreese, reviewed the mission parameters with her team. Target is a pack occupying maintenance level 7. Intelligence suggests 12 adults, several juveniles. Primary objective is elimination. Secondary objective is securing the territory for client operations. She pulled up a map of the lower decks. Sonic weapons will be primary armament. Neurology is vulnerable to specific frequencies. Hit them with the right sound, they go down. One of her soldiers raised a hand. What about the humans supposedly living with them? Kreese shrugged. If he's smart, he'll run when the shooting starts. If not, he's acceptable collateral damage. Client doesn't care either way. In the lower decks, Ho knew they were coming. Commander Jin had sent word through intermediaries. He had perhaps 6 hours before the assault began. 6 hours to prepare for something he had no training for, no weapons to fight with, and no real chance of surviving. The matriarch sensed the coming danger too. The entire pack was agitated, their markings flickering in rapid patterns. They gathered in the Central Territory area, a large junction where multiple maintenance corridors met. Ho joined them there. He'd been thinking about this constantly since Jin's warning. They were powerful, but they'd never faced military-grade weapons before. The sonic devices would hurt them badly. He needed to find some advantage, some way to help that didn't involve fighting. Then it hit him. The maintenance tunnels. He'd lived down here for months. He knew passages that didn't appear on official maps, service corridors that connected in unexpected ways, ventilation shafts large enough to move through. The mercenaries would rely on their maps and sensors. Ho knew the actual territory. He approached the matriarch carefully. She watched him with those intelligent eyes. "I need to show you something," he said. He'd learned that the responded to tone and intent more than specific words. "Follow me." He led her through the tunnels, showing her the hidden passages, the shortcuts, the places where corridors appeared to dead end but actually connected through maintenance hatches. The matriarch followed, learning quickly. When they returned to the pack, she communicated something to the others. They all began moving, exploring the routes Ho had shown them. He found equipment too. Old tools left by maintenance crews, pieces of metal that could be used to create barriers, emergency shutters that still functioned. The station's infrastructure became his armory. "We can't beat them in a straight fight," he told the matriarch, gesturing at the corridor where the attack would come from. "But we can make them fight on our terms, slow them down, confuse them, make them come into places where their weapons don't work as well." The matriarch's markings pulsed in understanding. She began directing her pack, positioning them throughout the tunnel system. Ho worked frantically, setting up barriers at key points, disabling lights in certain sections, opening ventilation shafts that would allow them to move between levels. Spark stayed close to him the entire time, helping where it could. The young was strong despite its age, able to move heavy objects Ho couldn't. They worked together naturally, communicating through gestures and simple sounds. When the attack came, it came with overwhelming force. The mercenaries advanced in tight formation, their sonic weapons sweeping ahead of them. The sound was terrible even to human ears. It must have been agony. The first wave of pack members that met them fell back immediately, their markings blazing with pain. But they didn't retreat into open ground. They fell back through the corridors Ho had prepared, leading the mercenaries deeper into the maze. Ho watched from a high ventilation shaft, his heart pounding. The soldiers were confident, moving forward steadily. They thought they were winning. They didn't realize they were being led. When the mercenaries reached the junction point, they struck from multiple directions. They came through side passages, dropped from upper shafts, emerged from sections the soldiers hadn't cleared properly. The sonic weapons were devastating in close quarters, but they had learned. They attacked in waves, with some members taking the sonic blast while others got close enough to strike. 3 mercenaries went down in the first real engagement. Not dead, but badly injured from massive claws and powerful limbs. The formation broke as soldiers tried to cover multiple directions at once. Ho moved through the upper passages, manually triggering emergency shutters to drop behind groups of mercenaries, cutting them off from support. He wasn't a fighter, but he could control the battlefield. Each shutter that closed divided the enemy force a little more. Commander Kreese realized too late that they'd been outmaneuvered. She ordered a retreat to regroup, but retreating through unfamiliar tunnels while apex predators harassed them from the shadows was nightmare fuel. Her soldiers fell back in disarray. The pressed the advantage. The matriarch led assault groups that hit and vanished, using the tunnels Ho had shown them. They were fighting smart, using their environment, refusing to commit to battles where the sonic weapons could be brought to bear effectively. But the cost was heavy. Several pack members were hit by the sonic blasts. The sound left them disoriented and vulnerable. 2 adults went down and didn't get back up. Ho saw them fall and felt sick. This was real. People were dying. He moved to help a wounded, dragging it into a safe corridor. The creature was barely conscious, its markings flickering weakly. Ho didn't know how to treat it properly, but he stayed with it anyway, keeping watch while it recovered. The battle raged for hours. The mercenaries regrouped twice, changing tactics, trying to use their superior numbers. But every time they advanced, they adapted. When the mercenaries used longer-range sonic weapons, they attacked from above. When they tried to secure a position, Ho would trigger another shutter or cut off their power. Spark fought too, staying near Ho but joining the battle when needed. The young was fast and brave, maybe too brave. During one engagement, it charged a group of mercenaries that had cornered 2 pack members. A sonic weapon caught it full force. Spark went down hard. Its markings went dark completely. Ho screamed and ran to it without thinking. Plasma bolts seared past him. He reached Spark and threw himself over the young's body, shielding it. The matriarch appeared like a fury. She tore through the mercenary group with terrifying efficiency. Her armored body took several direct hits, but rage and desperation drove her forward. The mercenaries broke and ran. Ho looked down at Spark. The young was breathing but barely. Its eyes were unfocused. "Stay with me," he whispered. "Please stay with me." The matriarch returned, bleeding from several wounds. She looked at her cub, then at Ho. Her markings shifted through several complex patterns: pain, fear, gratitude. She gently moved him aside and picked up Spark in her powerful limbs, carrying it to safety. The tide was turning. The mercenaries had started with 40 soldiers. Now they were down to 26 combat-effective personnel. Their commander's confidence was gone. This was supposed to be a simple extermination job. Instead, it was a bloodbath. Commander Jin, monitoring from security headquarters, saw her opportunity. The official time for her to notice the battle had arrived. She deployed station security in force, not to stop the fight but to arrest anyone found operating unauthorized military equipment in civilian areas. The mercenaries suddenly found themselves caught between an enraged pack and station security with legal authority to detain them. Their contract didn't cover fighting the authorities. Commander Kreese called the retreat. Her remaining soldiers fell back to their ship and prepared for emergency departure. In the lower decks, silence fell slowly. The regrouped, checking their wounded. Ho moved among them, doing what little he could to help. 2 pack members were dead. 5 more were seriously injured. The matriarch's armor was cracked in several places, and she moved with a pronounced limp. But they had won. They had defended their territory against a trained military force, and they had done it by working together and human, using intelligence instead of just strength. Ho found Spark in a protected alcove. The young was awake, its markings pulsing weakly. When it saw him, those markings brightened slightly. Ho sat beside it, placing his hand on its armored head. "You're going to be okay," he said softly. "We all are." The matriarch approached and settled nearby. Despite her injuries, despite her exhaustion, her markings showed something Ho had never seen before. Pride. She was proud of her pack, proud of her cub, and proud of the strange human who fought beside them. The siege was over, but everything had changed. The news spread through 7 faster than station regulations could contain it. A homeless human and a pack had defeated a mercenary assault. Video footage leaked from security systems. Witnesses told stories that grew with each retelling. Within a day, the entire station knew what had happened in the lower decks. Commander Jin arrested Bora and his top associates within hours of the battle's end. The evidence of their illegal mercenary contract was overwhelming. She made sure the charges stuck. Bora would spend the next decade in a Federation prison, and his criminal empire collapsed without him. Ho sat in a station medical bay, getting his burns treated. He'd taken a plasma graze across his shoulder during the fight, though he barely remembered when it happened. The adrenaline had carried him through the battle. Now, sitting still, everything hurt. A doctor, a kind Delphian woman named, worked on his injuries. "You're lucky this isn't worse. Plasma burns can go deep." I had good friends watching my back. Smiled, "So I've heard. Everyone's heard. You're famous now, you know. The man who lives with monsters, they're calling you." "They're not monsters." "No," she agreed, applying the last of the medical gel. "I suppose they're not. Any creature capable of that kind of loyalty can't be called a monster." Commander Jin arrived as the doctor was finishing. She waited until they were alone before speaking. "The Coalition wants to talk to you. So does the Research Institute, and about 40 news organizations." Ho groaned. "I just want to go back to the lower decks." "That's what I told them you'd say." Jin pulled up a chair. "But you should hear me out first. The Coalition is prepared to make you an official liaison to the full salary, housing, benefits. Your job would be to facilitate communication between their packs and station authorities throughout this sector. They don't need a human spokesman." "No, but the humans need someone who understands the. Do you know how many stations have populations? 23 in this sector alone. On every single one, they're treated as dangerous animals to be avoided or eliminated. What you've done here proves they're intelligent, social, and capable of cooperation with other species." Ho thought about the matriarch's tactical intelligence during the battle, about Spark's brave loyalty, about the way the pack communicated and coordinated. People should know that. They should understand. "Then help us make them understand. Be the bridge." "I'd still live with them, in the lower decks. Any meetings happen on their territory." Jin smiled. "I told the Coalition you'd say that too. They agreed to all your conditions. They're even willing to establish a small embassy down there, neutral ground where both species can meet safely." "Let me talk to the matriarch first. This should be her decision too." He returned to the lower decks that evening. The pack was recovering from the battle. The wounded were healing, though the 2 who died had been carried deep into the tunnels for burial according to custom. Ho felt their loss deeply. They had died defending him as much as their territory. The matriarch greeted him with gentle concern, checking him over for new injuries. Her own wounds were bandaged with materials provided by Station Medical. She had allowed the doctors to treat her pack, another unprecedented development. Ho sat with her and tried to explain the offer in simple terms, using gestures and tone. He talked about other stations, other packs, and the possibility of better understanding between species. The matriarch listened patiently. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. Her markings shifted through several colors. Finally, she stood and led him deeper into the territory, to a large chamber he'd never seen before. Inside, the entire pack was gathered. Cubs played under the watchful eyes of adults. Wounded members rested while others brought them food and water. It was a family, complete and complex. The matriarch's message was clear. This is what we are. This is what people should see. Yes, Ho agreed. This is what they should see. Over the following weeks, changes came to the lower decks. Station engineers built a small but comfortable embassy structure in neutral territory between the deep tunnels and the inhabited areas. It had meeting rooms, medical facilities, and living quarters for Ho and any other staff, but Ho rarely slept there. Most nights found him in his old alcove, with Spark curled up nearby. The first official visitors were scientists wanting to study communication. Ho carefully introduced them, making sure they understood the rules. Respect, patience, no aggressive behavior, no sudden movements. The matriarch allowed limited observation, and what the scientists discovered amazed them. They weren't just intelligent, they were sophisticated. Their bioluminescent communication had grammar and nuance. They had social structures, cultural traditions, and even something like art. The patterns they created with their markings weren't random. They were expressions of beauty and meaning. News outlets descended next. Ho gave interviews reluctantly, always making sure to credit them for their intelligence and the matriarch for her leadership. He told the story of Spark's rescue simply and honestly. He wanted people to understand that compassion had started everything, not some special trick or technique. "I had a protein bar," he said in one interview. "A small creature was hurt and hungry. I shared what I had, that's all. The rest was up to them." The interviewer pressed him, "But you must have done something special, some way you approached them." "I treated them like people, like they mattered, like their cub's life had value." Ho looked directly at the camera. "That shouldn't be special, that should be normal." Other homeless humans started appearing at the embassy. Cautiously at first, then with more confidence. They'd heard that Ho could help them get documents processed, find work, access services. He did what he could, but he also had another idea. He spoke to the matriarch about it carefully. Would the pack accept other humans living nearby if those humans respected the territory and followed the rules? The matriarch considered this for several days. She consulted with her pack. Finally, she agreed to a trial. Sunmi was the first. The older woman who'd been skeptical of Ho's story now asked if she could live under the pack's protection. She was tired of being robbed, tired of running, tired of being invisible. Ho helped her set up a small space near the embassy. The watched but didn't interfere. Over time, trust built. Sunmi learned to move through the territory properly. She learned which sounds meant danger and which meant curiosity. She learned to recognize individual pack members by their markings, and slowly, carefully, they began to accept her presence. Other humans followed, not many but enough. They formed a small community in the lower decks, living alongside the. It wasn't perfect. There were misunderstandings and mistakes, but there was also mutual respect and growing friendship. Spark, now nearly full-grown, became especially close to a young human girl named Wu. She'd been orphaned in the same pirate raid that had destroyed Ho's ship. She was quiet and scared, but Spark seemed to understand. The young would sit with her for hours, its presence a silent comfort. Sometimes, Ho would find them together, Wu's small hand resting on Spark's armored back while she slept peacefully. "You started something good," Commander Jin told him during one of her visits. She'd become a regular presence in the lower decks, helping facilitate the integration. Other stations are watching. 3 of them have reached out asking for advice on establishing similar programs. "It wasn't me, it was them." Ho gestured to where the matriarch was teaching her youngest cubs to hunt tunnel rats. "They chose to trust. I just gave them a reason to." "You gave them more than that. You gave them dignity, recognition, proof that they're more than dangerous animals." Jin paused. "There's talk of establishing official territories on major stations, recognized zones with legal protection. Your work here made that possible." Ho thought about how far things had come. From a terrified, homeless man sharing his last meal with an injured cub to this strange, wonderful community where two species lived side by side. It felt impossible, like a dream. But it was real. He could see it in Wu's peaceful sleep and Spark's protective watch. He could see it in the way Sunmi traded stories with other refugees while cubs played nearby. He could see it in the matriarch's calm pride as she watched her pack thrive in safety and recognition. 6 months after the battle, Ho stood at the edge of the lower deck's main plaza. It wasn't abandoned anymore. Humans shared the space, not mixing completely but existing in respectful proximity. A small market had formed where people traded goods. Children played under the watchful eyes of both species' adults. The emergency lighting had been supplemented with warmer fixtures that didn't hurt eyes. Commander Jin joined him, observing the scene. "This is remarkable, Ho. In all my years of service, I've never seen anything like it. It's just people taking care of each other." "No, it's more than that. It's proof that barriers between species aren't as solid as we think. That compassion can bridge any divide." She watched as Wu laughed at something Spark did. "You changed the galaxy by feeding a hungry cub." Ho smiled. "I think the galaxy was always ready to change. It just needed someone to take the first step." The matriarch approached, moving slowly but with purpose. Her wounds from the battle had healed, though she would always carry the scars. She settled near Ho, close enough that he could feel the warmth of her body. Her markings pulsed in the pattern he'd learned meant contentment and peace. Spark bounded over, nearly knocking Wu off her feet. The girl giggled and grabbed this armored ridge to steady herself. They ran off together to join other youngsters in their play. "They're going to grow up thinking this is normal," Jin observed. "The next generation won't know a time when humans didn't live together." "Good," Ho said simply. "It should be normal. Kindness should be normal. Looking out for each other should be normal." Above them, the station's artificial stars began their evening cycle, dimming slowly to simulate night. In the lower decks, this meant they would become more active while humans settled down to rest. But there was no fear in the transition anymore, just the comfortable rhythm of a community that had learned to share space and time. The matriarch stood and made a sound, calling her pack. They emerged from various corridors, gathering for their evening hunt. But before they left, each adult passed near Ho. It was a ritual they'd developed, a gesture of acknowledgement and belonging. He was pack now in every way that mattered. Spark was the last to leave, pressing its head against Ho one more time before following the others into the deep tunnels. The human watched them go, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the station's climate control. He'd lost everything once: his ship, his job, his home, his identity. The station had ground him down to nothing, left him sleeping on cold floors and eating garbage. But in that darkness, he'd found something more valuable than anything he'd lost. He'd found purpose. He'd found family. He'd found proof that even the smallest act of kindness could change everything. As they disappeared into the shadows and the lower deck community settled in for the night, Ho returned to his quarters in the embassy. But he didn't go to the comfortable room they'd assigned him. He went to his old alcove, the one where he'd slept those first desperate months. Someone had cleaned it and added a proper sleeping mat, but it was still his space, his home. He lay down, listening to the familiar sounds of the lower decks. Somewhere in the darkness, the pack was hunting. In the plaza, Sunmi and others were sharing dinner and stories. Throughout the station, word was spreading about the community in the lower decks, the place where species barriers didn't matter as much as mutual respect and care. Ho closed his eyes and smiled. He'd fed a hungry cub once, just shared what little he had with someone who needed it, and that small act had built bridges across the deepest divides. In the darkness, he whispered a quiet thank you to the universe for putting him in that place at that moment, for giving him the chance to choose compassion over fear, for showing him that sometimes the best thing you can do is simply care when caring seems impossible. The station spun on through space, carrying its countless lives toward unknown futures. But in the lower decks, where forgotten things went to survive, a new future was already being written, one act of kindness at a time.